Thanks for joining us again. This is the Word for the Valley podcast. And in this episode, we step into one of the most powerful displays of Jesus' compassion and authority. As he responds to a desperate father and a suffering woman, we see Jesus stop for the broken, restore what seems lost, and bring life where there was only death. These two accounts remind us that no one is too far gone, too unclean, or too overlooked for the healing touch of Christ. Let's listen closely as Pastor Mike teaches at chapter 9, verse 18.
I'm going to start off this morning by making a very obvious statement that to our society doesn't seem to be very obvious anymore, is that women and men are different. They're not the same thing. They haven't been the same thing since God pulled that rib out of Adam and made a woman, brought her to the man, and he named her woman, right? Whoa, man, by the way, whoa, man, woman. And since Genesis chapter 3, the struggle, he will basically govern over you, but you will desire to rule over him. That struggle has gone on since. And one of the sad things I think that we see in our modern culture is that we've reduced women to pictures, images, something that can be captured on an Instagram or Snapchat or something. And that almost becomes like the height of woman, right? Like the pinnacle, you're successful if you can take a good selfie, or if you can appear in these magazines or wear these clothes or these kinds of things. And in many ways, I think we've actually reduced women, if we're not careful. We've reduced women to something that a man can actually be. I think it's one of the things that we're seeing in our own culture, because she's nothing really much more than a body accentuated with plastic and Botox. That it's just something almost you can just staple on somebody and call them a woman. Now they can take a selfie, they can take a picture, they look very nice. But the essential things that make a woman different, you can't capture on film. It's not something that is inherent in how they look, how they present themselves, how they dress up. Any man can dress like a woman. He'll never be a woman. He'll never be a woman. Not in the way that God's designed him to be. Not the ways the Lord wants. Because there's something inherent in how God has made a woman that is unique from man. And it needs to be accentuated. It needs to be celebrated to some degree. Women, you don't need to be like men. Please don't try. What you need to be is godly women. Godly women. To add your part to the mix that a man cannot do. I tell everybody that we're working through the premarital stuff. I look at the woman, I say, listen, this man you're marrying is dumb. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's incredibly insecure, although he will never tell you that out loud. So you need to be gentle with him. But you, without usurping his authority, because he has got a really tender, king complex that you need to be really sensitive to. Without usurping his authority, he needs your assistance. He needs your guidance. He needs your eyes. He needs your ears. He needs your heart. He needs to see the things that you see. Again, not because you're trying to take charge of the household or win somebody over to your perspective, but because you come alongside as a nourisher, as a helper, as an assistant, as the helpmeet that God's created you to be. You come alongside, you add something in that he will never have. You may be frustrated to the end of your days, honey, that he's not getting it. Listen, he ain't going to get it. He is dumb. He ain't going to get any smarter. Right? It actually may go the other direction for a while. Okay? What happened to this man I married? He's exactly like we told you he was. We all knew him to be that. You had rose-colored glasses on. That's not our problem. That's your problem. But a woman that comes in and aids that in some ways will change the world. It was Moses' mother spoke the word into his heart before he was even weaned, that no doubt God implanted that by the time he was of grown man age, he realized that the people who were being beaten by the Egyptians were his people, right? He had the mark of Israel on him. He had the word of God in his heart. His mom had planted it there, only to bear fruit much later in his life. She might have been long since dead before he becomes Moses. But she had changed a generation. She had changed the whole nation, whole culture. You think we incredibly underestimate the significance of influence and what a woman provides, especially in our own culture. Well, it's interesting here as we come to this, and if you can, in some way, try to put yourself back into this scene. We're a woman in an ancient society that wasn't highly valued either. Oftentimes reduced to almost property, not much more than that in some people's eyes. To be used when no longer beneficial to the man, divorced, he would go find kind of a better version, start all over for a little while until he was done with her, and then he would divorce her and then move on to somebody else. Even many of the religious leaders in their time had up to 10 wives, 12 wives during their lifetime, just willfully divorcing and marrying and starting over, almost just using the women until they were done with them, right? As God comes along in this scene, in that society, how he elevates women and how he takes care of them speaks to God's heart. That is different from even the society of this day. So verse 18 tells us, while he spoke these things to them. Now Jesus is in Capernaum, and we're told from the other accounts, it's Mark chapter 5, by the way, and Luke chapter 8 give us more details on these things, and we'll try to add them in as we go along here. That he's in Capernaum, and he is surrounded by huge crowds. He's teaching primarily. Again, Jesus' primary ministry was teaching, not healing. He was teaching primarily, and the crowds are, in Mark, he uses the word thronging Jesus, which literally means that they're pressing in and squishing him. The crowds are so heavy. All right? I don't know if you've ever been in a mosh pit. I don't recommend it. All right? I am a bit claustrophobic. If I get stuck, I still remember being in 7th grade on the bottom of the big pig pile, right? And just wanting to tear limbs off, right? Just gouge stuff out to get out from underneath this oppressive thing, and nobody's moving. Just the fear and I feel that, right? And to have Jesus in the middle of this crowd where, he's kind of just like being almost moved by the mass. They're squishing him. It's in this scene, then, that behold, it says, a ruler came. Now this ruler, Mark 5, verse 22, tells us his name is Jairus. And he's not just a ruler as a political leader, he's actually the ruler of the local synagogue. The local synagogue that Jesus no doubt attended to while he was in Capernaum. They've run into each other, no doubt, on numerous occasions. This is probably the man that at some point in Capernaum would have given Jesus the right to read the scriptures at the times when he was still accepted there to do that. This is Jairus. He's a Jew. He's a religious leader. He's also a father. And he comes here, it says, to Jesus, and he worshipped him. And worship literally means to bow in the dust. Now, what would drive a Jewish religious leader to bow in the dust before this rabbi, that by this time in Jesus' ministry is beginning to grow out of favor to the Jews? Because Jesus is not supporting their ministry. He told us earlier, right? We're not coming here to patch a new patch onto an old pair of jeans. I'm not pouring these new resources into old wineskins. He's saying, I'm not coming here to build up your Jewish religious system. I'm coming here to start something completely new. And when he starts saying that, the Jewish people realize he's not here to help us. He's not here to make our lives better. He's here to start something completely different. I'm not sure we're okay with that. This man comes and he bows anyway. Because at this point in his life, he realizes his religion can't help. Being Jewish is not significant. It's not enough to address the situation in his own life. Not merely to have some title of being governed by God without actually knowing God, without actually walking with God, without actually getting the touch of God, right? To merely have the title doesn't mean anything to him. What he needs is he actually needs the God who had given the nation of Israel that title from the very beginning, right? It's one thing to come to the house of God. It's a whole other thing entirely to meet the God of the house of God. And he needed something else other than just being Jewish. Well, he says to Jesus, he says, my daughter has just died. Now, we know from Mark and Luke that she has not died yet. Matthew seems to use an idiom here that implies that his daughter is at the point of death. It's the way it's written, seems like she's just died. She's not died yet. She's at the point of death. She's almost died. And Jairus anticipates that if something doesn't happen, that she will in fact die. So maybe in his mind, it's already a done deal. But there's still this little measure yet of time. And he says to Jesus, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. Now, he wants Jesus to attend to his daughter. And we're told in Mark that this daughter is 12. She's 12 years old. The last time I had taught Jairus' daughter, my daughter was 12 years old. She's now 19. Have a 12-year-old daughter in your house. It's interesting. That's the word you use when you don't know what else to say. What do you think about this? Oh, it's interesting. It just means you're just like, I don't know. It's weird. It's painful. It's frustrating. It's difficult. It's interesting. A 12-year-old girl. I know that mine rocked my world. Completely different than anything I would have ever expected. I'd grown up with a brother, right? I didn't grow up with a sister. I didn't, apart from Julie, know a whole lot of girls. They didn't usually spend a lot of time with me. And to know Julie, right, is to know a woman kind of through the process, surrendered to some degree. I want your girl kind of in the raw form. It's frightening, painful, fascinating, remarkable, lovely, overwhelming, interesting. A 12-year-old girl brings all of that, right? In the Jewish society, at 12, a girl would be considered an adult. They would actually have a ceremony and to acknowledge her as kind of fully matured and ready to be married. 12, you're good, right? Let's go find a guy who can give me a goat, and we're going to sell you off and move along, and my job as a dad is done, kind of thing. It's a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing. When your kids pay their own bills. Thank you, Lord, right? We had an agreement with all of our kids, okay, you go to college, we're going to do this much for you. This much, that's kind of our minimum. That's what we're going to do to help, right? Over the summer, Evan was here, and, hey, Dad, can I get my money like this? And I'm like, yep. And I gave it to him like that. Here it is. And then I looked at him and I said, that's it. What a wonderful feeling, right? To have gotten to that place. You're raised. Good luck. I'll fill up your FAFSA. The rest is on you, bro. Figure it out. Just kind of let me know when you want Thanksgiving or, when you're going to be home for Christmas. Otherwise, sayonara. Good. Well, it's beautiful, right? To get a child to the place where you're ready to see them become an adult, which is always the goal when you're parenting a child. You want to see them leave the house. You want to see them leave the nest. You want to see them stand on their own feet. You want to see them walk where they need to walk and do what they need to do and be able to do it as a full-grown, full-blooded adult. You don't want to see them perpetually living in your basement. You don't want to 35 and playing video games, right? Get a job, kind of thing. Like, it's not the goal of a parent. The goal of a parent is to see a child become an adult. And he's gotten there. She's gotten really sick. She may be engaged to be married, but she's not married yet. She is not the wife of some man. She is the daughter of Jairus. Not only is she his daughter, 12 years of age, she is his only daughter. He doesn't have a spare. Not that any child is ever disposable. But this is it. And he comes to Jesus and says, listen, she's at the point of death. You'll come and lay your hand on her and she will live. Now, this is his confidence, probably because he has seen Jesus do things like this in the past. He has seen healings now in Capernaum. He has heard the word go around. He's seen things, right? The leper was in Capernaum, right? He's heard the reports. And he's driven to the fact that Jesus can do this out of the desperation that his daughter isn't going to be healed by anything else. Now, what does it take to get a man, a dad that cares, to stop attending his only daughter who is about ready to breathe her last breath? I remember when Julie got flown down to Hershey. It was just a crazy day. Right? Wednesday morning, coughing, some pain, right? Just thought it was a thing, right? It was a flu. We've gotten through the flu. Everybody else in the family got through the flu, right? Come on now. You just need a good night's sleep. And not get a good night's sleep. Early in the morning, coughing, try to put her down to rest some more, take some medicine, go lay down, right? Gets up an hour or two later. Oh, man, it's starting to hurt. I start calling around. Where do we go? What ER? Joe said, not Sunbury. Don't go to Sunbury. He was working in the Sunbury hospital at the time. Don't go to Sunbury because they'll just send her somewhere else. It's too small. He said, you can go Evan or Geisinger, and we went up to Evan. Went into the waiting room, and it was just a casual waiting room experience, as though her chest started to get warmer and hotter and more painful, and her breathing started to become more and more labored, but everybody else was taking their time, so we thought we were good, right? The nurse said, okay, we'll try this test, and we'll do this, and we're like, sitting there, like talking, and sports and weather and kind of stuff, and then they get the things back, and it's like, we need to get her to the ICU, and you're like, what? And then you go from ICU and you watch her go really fast down. ICU, they contacted Geisinger doctors. They're on the video cam, and you're there in the room, and the doctors are in the room, and everybody's in the room. And then by then, Graham and Joan are there, and everybody's, concerned and kind of these things. And finally, the doctors come in and say, listen, her only hope is ECMO. And I'm like, what is that? I've never even heard of that before. ECMO. That's her only hope, right? Just even a ventilator is not going to be enough. She needs more life support than that. Well, then give her whatever she needs. And she finally looked at me and she said, Michael, it hurts so bad I don't even care. It hurts so bad. Just put me out. I don't want to feel this anymore. It just hurts so bad. She could barely even talk. It was just hot. You touch her chest. It was hot, like hot to the touch. And by that time, then they fly up. They call in the Hershey docs. They fly him up. And again, I'm trying to figure out where my kids are and who's going to get them home from school. And it was a Wednesday night. Who was going to teach the study and all the stuff that we were working at and do all that stuff. And then eventually, when the helicopter lifts off, Joan calls me and says they're on the way to Hershey. I call up my brother. I said, I don't even know where Hershey is. I mean, I know the city. I've been to Chocolate World, but I don't know where the hospital is. And he's like, well, I've been there a few times, so I'll take you down. He drove me down, which is good because I'm not sure I could have done it myself. And you get down there in that whirlwind, right? And you watch this life that you love begin to go on that slide. It takes a lot of effort and convincing to get you out of that room the first night. You have kids at home. They need you. You need sleep. This is going to be a longer haul than this. You can't burn yourself out in one day. Go home. I'm not going home. What if she dies tonight? What if this is it? What if this is the last time I see her? I'm not going home. You need to go home. I'm not going home. I need to be here. You can't do anything. I know, but I need to be here. This is my wife, right? Jairus, this is my daughter. This is my only daughter. What drives a man to stop attending his only daughter who is at the point of death? Except sheer desperation. That he would leave her there She is going to breathe her last breath without him in the room. But he leaves. And the interesting thing is here, now, for us it's different, obviously, because Jesus is everywhere. We have the ministry of the Holy Spirit. We don't have to leave our loved one to seek Jesus on their behalf. But I think in our hearts, we have to replicate the surrender that this man does to stop attending his daughter to seek Jesus on her behalf. I would tell you as a parent that one of the most important and significant things that you'll ever do is surrender your kids to the Lord, because they're not yours. They are not your kids. They are God's kids on loan to you for a season. They are not yours. You're responsible to raise them in the fear and the admonition of the Lord, right? You do your best, but they are not yours. They are God's. They are God's. And at some point in all of our lives, if we're going to do this accurately, we're going to do this well, we are going to have to, in some ways, stop attending them. This is not neglect, but where we stop connecting ourselves to them so that they can be rightly connected to Jesus. And in a parent's life, sometimes there has to be a bit of a separation for that to happen, where we stop attending the person who is at the point of death and say, Lord, you got to step in here. Well, beautifully, Jesus arose and followed him, and then so did his disciples. If you go to Jesus and say, Lord, please help my very sick daughter, do you think he's like, you know what, I'm busy today. I don't want to do it. No, look, yes, of course. Oh, no, you're Jewish. You don't like me. I'm not coming to your house. No, there's no way, right? No. Hey, you didn't follow protocol. You didn't do it the right way. You didn't pray the right way. Everybody wants to, you don't have the right measure of faith. You don't see this thing the right. No, you went to Jesus. You asked Jesus. He'll respond. And he arose, followed him, and so did his disciples.
As we close, we're reminded of the Father's powerful act of faith, leaving his dying daughter's side to seek Jesus. It's a surrender that mirrors what every parent is called to do, to entrust our children to the Lord, knowing they ultimately belong to him. And while we're called to raise them with wisdom and love, there comes a time when we must loosen our grip so they can grasp his. All right, that's all for now. Thanks for joining us. This is the Word for the Valley podcast. So long, everyone.